Welcome to Business Matters. The Super Bowl registered record ratings for the second year in a row. That's according to preliminary estimates. Sunday's big game on Fox, when the Philadelphia Eagles blew out the Kansas City Chiefs, averaged 126 million viewers across all platforms, including broadcast TV, streaming, and apps. If the number holds, it marks a 2% increase over last year's record-breaking game on CBS. Fox said viewership peaked in the second quarter when nearly 136 million people were tuned into the game. NBC and Peacock will air next year's Super Bowl from Santa Clara, California on February 8th. And there were very few sweet deals on chocolate this Valentine's Day. In fact, the price tag on chocolate treats may leave a bitter taste in your mouth. One expert says you can expect to see chocolate prices jump around 10 to 20% over last year. The price of cocoa has more than doubled since the beginning of 2024. It hit a record high in December. The cost of manufacturing chocolate has increased by more than 167% in the last 2 years. And retailers have raised prices in response. You may be able to skirt high prices by buying chocolate made with cocoa powder, as more premium chocolate contains a higher percentage of cocoa. Now, major airlines are hoping the Trump administration is the ticket out of paying passengers for delays. In December, the Biden administration launched a review for comments on whether airlines should have to pay passengers for disruptions caused by the carrier. The U.S. Transportation Department wants airlines to pay up to $300 for domestic delays of at least 3 hours and up to $775 for 9-hour delays. The trade group Airlines for America is calling on the Trump administration to end the review. It's arguing the U.S. DOT does not have the legal authority and the requirement would drastically increase airlines' costs and passengers' ticket prices. Boeing has just wrapped up one of its busiest months in years. The plane maker reported 45 deliveries in January. That's up from 30 in the previous month. January marked the most deliveries in a month since 2023 and its busiest January since 2019. Just 1 year ago, Boeing was under major scrutiny and its 737 MAX 9 models were grounded over a mid-air blowout on an Alaska Air flight. January was also Boeing's first full month of production since a 7-week strike that halted most of its commercial aircraft production. Boeing's new orders are also up from the same month a year ago, with a total of 34. Dave's Hot Chicken turned down the heat on labor costs with automation and outsourcing. 21 states recently raised minimum wages. In California, the minimum wage increased to $20 an hour. And that's last year. This is the highest in the U.S. for restaurant jobs. In response, the company convinced restaurant operators during a franchisee conference to switch to automatic dishwashers and contract out cleaning work. The chain also added self-ordering kiosks to California restaurants. Executives were worried customers would find the machines impersonal, but found customers actually order extras through the system. And this week, CVS could reveal a successful turnaround or continue a slump. The healthcare conglomerate has missed earnings targets for the last 3 quarters and withdrew its annual forecast. CVS underwent a management reshuffle and named David Joyner as CEO in October. The following month, the company laid out major plans for cost cutting. CVS, like its peers, are struggling with elevated costs across its Medicare plans for people older than 65. And CVS Health investors will be closely assessing turnaround initiatives when the company releases its 4th quarter results. And that would come out tomorrow. Now, they cost more and you can't buy as many. I'm talking about eggs. Some stores are setting a limit on the number of eggs shoppers can buy. This is in response to a shortage caused by the avian flu, more commonly known as the bird flu. Trader Joe's confirms that it is currently limiting egg purchases to 1 dozen per customer per day at all stores across the U.S. And Costco has set a max of 3 packages, which are typically sold in 2 or 4 dozen cartons. Kroger said it does not have a nationwide rule in place, but that some locations have chosen to limit purchases to only 24 based on availability. The new limits are in addition to sourcing prices, or souring prices that is. From November to December alone, the price spiked 14%. And a major move from President Trump. He's imposing a 25% tariff on steel and aluminum, a decision set to take effect on March 4th. The move could have wide-reaching effects on trade, industry, and consumer prices. NTD's Daniel Monahan has more on that and other recent steps.
President Trump has imposed a 25% tariff on steel and aluminum, set to take effect March 4th, impacting key suppliers like Canada, Mexico, and South Korea.
And it's going to mean a lot of businesses are going to be opening in the United States.
U.S. steelmakers welcome the move, saying it protects domestic production.
It's a big deal. It's a big deal. This is the beginning of making America rich again.
The American Iron and Steel Institute says trade policies implemented during Trump's first administration created a more competitive environment for the U.S. steel industry, leading to significant investments in new and upgraded facilities. Although the tariffs may be unwelcome news for foreign steel producers, Trump says they can avoid the new fees by shifting production to the U.S.
So if it's made in the United States, there is no tariff. All you have to do is make it in the United States. We don't need it from another country.
Analysts warn that industries that rely on metals, automakers, appliance manufacturers, and construction could see rising costs fueling inflation. On Monday, Trump said he will announce more reciprocal tariffs in the next 2 days.
If they charge us, we charge them. If they're at 25, we're at 25. If they're at 10, we're at 10.
Trump argues these moves will strengthen domestic manufacturing, though concerns remain over the broader economic impact. Shares at major listed steelmakers and top producer China slid on Tuesday as the fresh tariffs stoked concerns over the possible impact on steel exports this year. Meanwhile, Trump has signed an executive order reversing Biden-era environmental policies, including a measure phasing out single-use plastics like straws. Trump says paper straws don't work.
And I don't think that plastic's going to affect a shark very much as they're munching their way through the ocean.
The policy reversal sparked mixed reactions from consumers.
I would honestly prefer the plastic one over a paper straw, to be honest. I mean, I know it's definitely worse for the environment. I wish there was a different way. But, I mean, the paper ones are always soggy, so it's a little difficult.
And I think that as a consumer, I would definitely choose to support places that don't have plastic straws.
In another executive action, Trump has paused enforcement of the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, calling it a disaster for business. The 1977 law bans U.S. companies from bribing foreign officials, but Trump argues it hurts American competitiveness. Attorney General Pam Bondi will oversee the shift, prioritizing cartel and terrorism cases instead. And in a high-profile pardon, Trump has cleared former Illinois Governor Rod Blagojevich. The Democrat served 8 years of a 14-year sentence for corruption charges, including attempting to sell Barack Obama's Senate seat. Trump previously commuted his sentence in 2020. Trump was asked if he is considering Blagojevich for ambassador to Serbia.
No, but I would. I mean, he's now cleaner than anybody in this room.
While Trump's latest moves are drawing praise from supporters and criticism from opponents, the long-term impact remains to be seen. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
Now, it's worth mentioning that Trump said he agreed to consider a tariff exemption on Australian steel and aluminum imports after a telephone call yesterday with Prime Minister Anthony Albanese. Trump said the United States' trade surplus with Australia was one of the reasons he was considering an exemption from the tariffs. Now, Australia had an exemption of such tariffs during Trump's first administration as well. Meanwhile, the U.S. is now putting its coal export energy into India, and this comes after China announced 15% tariffs on U.S. coal imports. Industry experts now expect the U.S. to boost coal exports to India, which is the world's second largest coal importer after China. India's iEnergy Natural Resources Director said that 3 U.S. cargoes that were supposed to go to China have already landed in India, with 10 more waiting. Australia was the dominant coal supplier to India in the last decade, but India has diversified with supplies from the U.S. and Russia and Mozambique. Australia could now regain some coal share in China. President Trump on Tuesday moved to return to older standards for light bulbs, toilets, and showers. Trump said he would call on the Environmental Protection Agency to go back to water standards from his first term in the White House. Those rules would also affect sinks, washers, machines, and dishwashers. The decision comes a day after Trump signed an executive order ending the forced use of paper straws over plastic. The federal government will now be required to cease purchasing paper straws, and paper straws will not be provided in federal buildings. The order also requires the development of a national strategy to end the use of paper straws within 45 days. The chairman of the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell, testifies before the Senate Banking Committee this morning, and this is what he said about the U.S. economy. Listen.
The economy is strong overall and has made significant progress toward our goals over the past 2 years. We do not need to be in a hurry to adjust our policy stance. We know that reducing policy restraint too fast or too much could hinder progress on inflation.
Powell's Senate testimony is the first of 2 days of hearings on Capitol Hill. After his testimony to the Senate Banking Committee today, Powell will appear before the House Financial Services Committee for more. And South Korea's acting president said his government would seek talks with the Trump administration about Washington's 25% tariff on steel and aluminum imports. He added that the chief executives of 20 major South Korean conglomerates plan to visit the U.S. Acting President Choi Sang-mok said the government also intends to discuss response measures with Japan and the European Union. The South Korean acting president said his nation is making an all-out effort to build close ties with the Trump administration to protect the interests of South Korean companies. Earlier today, the company's trade minister said that Trump's 25% tariffs effective in March would erode steel exporters' profitability. He added that, however, duties may offer opportunities for Korean companies to find new export markets. Now, your yearly Valentine flowers have arrived in Miami. In the run-up to February 14th, the U.S. Customs and Border Protection says agricultural specialists at Miami International Airport have processed about 940 million stems of cut flowers. Around 90% of the fresh cut flowers being sold for Valentine's Day in the United States come through Miami each year, and the other 10% pass through Los Angeles. Now, roses, carnations, pom-poms, and gypsophilia arrive on hundreds of flights, mostly from Colombia and Ecuador, into Miami on their journey to florists and supermarkets across the U.S. and Canada. The Georgia Department of Agriculture has lifted the suspension of poultry activities in Georgia, which is one of the country's top poultry-producing states, and it comes after bird flu testing, depopulation, and disinfecting were done in the area, and no new cases were found. In January, all poultry exhibitions and sales in Georgia were suspended after positive bird flu cases in Elbert County were identified at 2 facilities. The highly contagious virus was responsible for the deaths of more than 40 million egg-laying birds. Last year, it's been a contributing factor in the soaring price of eggs across the U.S., as the USDA requires the culling of entire flocks to stop the spread where the virus is detected. Aviation giant Airbus is exploring a potential double-level airplane seat design. The brains behind the dual-level seat is aviation startup Chase Long. The company says it's exploring some early-stage concepts with Airbus. An Airbus representative confirmed that statement. The collaboration is a significant step in the seat's design journey from college student project to potential in-flight reality. And the penny may soon be on its way out in the United States. President Donald Trump announced on Sunday he's ordered his administration to cease production of the 1-cent coin. Now, Canada eliminated its penny over a decade ago. So what can Americans expect? We asked people who have already been through this.
producing a penny probably is going to cost more than a penny, for sure.
With a penny, you could buy a candy once upon a time. Now you can't do much. So that just says that it really doesn't have a value, right? And so not having a value means that we should get rid of it.
As much as it's nice to have currency, a lot of people are moving away from having currency in their hand. Not a lot of people carry change anymore or any other kind of major bill, let alone coins. So it's just one less thing you have to have in your pocket, I guess.
Yeah, I'm using credit cards, so it doesn't impact me.
When President Donald Trump changed the name of the Gulf of Mexico, it still said Gulf of Mexico on Google Maps, but not anymore, because Google says its policy is to change names when they have been updated by official government sources. Trump changed the name through an executive order last month, and Google Maps is now reflecting that change. But users in Mexico will still see the name Gulf of Mexico. Everywhere else, though, users will see both names. Trump also changed the name of Mount Denali in Alaska back to Mount McKinley. Google said it would change that on its maps too, but it hasn't happened yet. As for what map and globe makers do, that decision is up to them. Now, ahead of Valentine's Day, the federal government is raising awareness about a sophisticated online romance scam. The Commodities Future Trading Commission has launched the Dating or Defrauding Awareness campaign. The multi-agency social media initiative is warning Americans about relationship investment scams. According to the agency, fraudsters use fake profiles on dating apps and even wrong number text messages to target possible victims. The scammer would claim to have made a lot of money trading cryptocurrency. Victims are told to convert their dollars to cryptocurrency and send it to a scam website for ways to earn extra money. The federal agency says never trade or give money to people you only meet online or know them. In 2023, the FBI reported a nearly $4 billion loss to crypto-related investment scams. And references to cultural events like Black History Month and Pride Month have been removed in an update to Google Calendar's default settings. Among the excluded observance preferences were women's history and Jewish heritage and Hispanic heritage, Indigenous Peoples Month, and Holocaust Remembrance Day. The changes prompted some to criticize the company. A Google spokesperson said the changes were implemented last year as part of a broader revamp of the calendar tool based on user input. The spokesperson explained that years ago, the calendar team started manually adding a broader set of cultural moments in a wide number of countries. According to the spokesperson, maintaining it wasn't sustainable. Sam Altman rejects Elon Musk's bid to buy OpenAI, but is that decision ultimately his? Here's more on that.
I mean, it's ridiculous.
OpenAI CEO Sam Altman rejects Elon Musk's bid to buy OpenAI.
The company is not for sale. It's like another one of his, tactics to try to mess with us.
Musk, along with other investors, offered $97.4 billion to buy OpenAI on Monday. Musk's lawyer, Mark Toberoff, says he wants to return it to being open source and safety focused. Altman posted on X, "No thank you, but we will buy Twitter for $9.74 billion if you want." Ultimately, it's up to OpenAI's board whether or not to sell. In a Bloomberg interview, Altman says he thinks Musk is just trying to compete.
I think he's probably just trying to slow us down. He obviously is a competitor. He's working hard and he's raised a lot of money for XAI, and they're trying to compete with us.
Altman says he thinks Musk is using tactics to get ahead instead of focusing on building a better product.
If he was looking for a financial gain, he would have just went along with what Sam was doing in terms of migrating the nonprofit sector out of it. This is strictly not a money play.
AI expert Daniel Keller says he thinks Musk is trying to make a point about OpenAI moving away from its original mission.
AI needs to be available for all. Open source based platforms that anybody can see input and output algorithms, and I think Elon holds that as well.
Keller says he's surprised it took Musk this long to make a bid for OpenAI.